Our project is about Two-Spirit community, pre-colonial queerness. Two-Spirit is a modern term used by some indigenous North American communities to describe a person who embodies both masculine and feminine spirits, and it is specific to indigenous cultures. Before colonization, many indigenous cultures across North America recognized more than two genders. Individuals who would now be called Two-Spirit often held important social, spiritual, and ceremonial roles. They were often viewed as bridge builders between genders and spiritual worlds, acting as healers, matchmakers, and ceremonial leaders. Two-Spirit people were known by various names in different tribal languages. Here are three examples. The impact of colonization is also a significant part of Two-Spirits. European colonizers introduced binary gender norms and Christian moral codes to Native Americans, which suppressed their Two-Spirit identities, and many indigenous communities were forced to conform to Western ideas of gender and sexuality, leading to the disappearance of Two-Spirit roles and traditions in numerous tribes.
For our documentary project, we were very grateful to be able to interview Zaya, who is a 25-year-old Two-Spirit person of the Navajo tribe. As Zaya told us, the existence of Two-Spirit people is highly culturally protected by the Native American community. So a lot of the information passed down from the Native American community is passed down through stories and legends, and it's unlikely to have been formally documented within the tribe. So actually what we found out when we were doing our literature review is that a lot of the studies around Two-Spirit people have been written by white anthropologists. So that's why it was so important for us to speak to an actual Two-Spirit person.
Hi there, my name is Zaya Slopetalker. I am Diné or Navajo, and yeah, I'm a Two-Spirit. To be Two-Spirit, you have to have like a spiritual meeting where you gather with your friends and family, a medicine man or a shaman, and they essentially look into your soul, and if they just kind of gauge if you have the capability. You were born with two spirits, and that's all it really is. The idea is that the creator blesses you with both male and female spirits, and they coexist inside one body. And so that means one person's Two-Spirit could present more masculine but have feminine traits. Or like me, I present more feminine, but there's a lot of things that my masculinity kind of comes out. So a long time ago, after our men and women were created, we were created by the creator making us out of mud. So he made a bunch of people, and that was like our first civilization at very, very early time. And just like with cohabiting with anyone, like when you have roommates, you're bound to bump heads, you're bound to argue, and that's kind of what happened. The men and women had certain criteria that weren't being met on either side. So this resulted in the men going to the west and the women going to the east. The story goes that over time they spent a really long time separated from each other. Over time, there were men who learned how to cook and clean and take care of, the house and all the stuff like that are more feminine. And then on the other side, there were women who learned how to hunt and gather and defend themselves, make weapons, things that were more masculine. That is how some of the LGBT community became this fruition in this early civilization. However, it is not sustainable because there was no ability to procreate. So what happened is the creator, when he was making the second round of people, he blessed them with two spirits, a feminine spirit and a masculine spirit. And he made a bunch of these people to be able to go into those communities and hear both sides and try and get everyone to come together again. That's exactly what happened. Everyone finally learned how to cohabitate with each other. We had LGBT people in the community now. We had Two-Spirit people in the community now. And it just brought a lot of harmony. back to our people. Now, the reason why medicine men tell this story is that the idea is the more disharmonious our world is, the more the Creator makes Two-Spirit and LGBT people, because they're able to bring harmony back to it. So my grandpa always said, the reason why there's so many people like you in this world, meaning me, like, the reason why there's so many people like you in this world is because you're needed. This world has not known harmony for a long, long time. So he's like, don't worry about what other people say. There's more of you to come, and there's more people like you to come out. So like, all you're gonna do is bring harmony.
Some takeaways from our conversation with Zaya were that in Native American culture, the presence of two spirits has to be defined in you by a medicine man. It is not just a gender identity that you can claim for yourself. It can also be seen as disrespectful if you claim to be two spirit, but you haven't performed a ceremony formally or you haven't been blessed by a medicine man. Being two-spirit is not the same thing as being trans. Many two-spirit people are in fact not trans like Zaya. And being two-spirit is a position of high honor. Having said that, thank you, Zaya, for allowing us to interview you.
So let's look at what the queer community can learn from Two-Spirit teachings and wisdom. The presence of Two-Spirit people shows how deeply queerness has existed outside of the Western definition of queerness for a long time before colonial contact. The modern queer concepts are often rooted in Western ideas about identity. Words like trans or non-binary can sometimes still be rigid and are not suitable to describe complex identities like Two-Spirits. Indigenous cultures across North America have their own understandings of gender and sexuality, an understanding that was rooted in spirituality and community. However, colonization violently erased that through forced assimilation of rigid gender binaries. And the Western hegemony reinforces these rigid gender binaries to this day. By recognizing and uplifting Two-Spirit voices, the queer community can begin to decolonize their thinking and broaden its understanding of queerness beyond the Western models. Two-Spirit teachings can inspire us to unlearn these binaries imposed by colonization and let us reconnect with queerness as something that is more fluid but also spiritual, and that is rooted in a sense of community, and not just a mere identity that is focused on the individual. This way, the queer community can not just include Two-Spirits in their definition of queer, but also learn from their wisdoms and transform and decolonize their mindsets.
Although nowadays society is more open to queer and their culture, as Two-Spirit people are not only part of queer but also part of indigenous, which is Native Americans, they might face different challenges living in this society. First is the lack of legal and institutional recognition. Although Two-Spirit roles were once very respected in many tribes, some have formally recognized their identities. There are still tribes that refuse to recognize them or even trying to erase the existence of them under the influence of Christian. While government's recognition of gender diversity often exclude indigenous framework, leaving Two-Spirit people in bureaucratic limbo, which causes more challenges to them. At the health and socio-economic disparity part, according to the Tribe Institute 214 documents, among over 6,000 surveyed Two-Spirit people, over half of them had attempted suicide and over 80% of them had been sexually assaulted. This shows that Two-Spirit people might have experienced this disproportionate level of discrimination and cause heavy mental health issues to them, not only in the big environment of the society. Discriminations like racism might also find in queer communities dominated by white perspectives, as Two-Spirit people are indigenous. This leads to lacking cultural competence and care and cause disparities.
In conclusion, our presentation on Two-Spirit identities illuminated their profound cultural, spiritual, and historical significance within indigenous communities, emphasizing their traditional role as revered mediators. Through Zaya's heartfelt interview, we gain personal insight into the resilience of Two-Spirit individuals. Their story underscored the importance of cultural preservation, intersectional advocacy, and the need to center indigenous voices in the discussions of gender diversity. Ultimately, this exploration calls for deepened respect, allyship, and the support for the Two-Spirit communities, honoring their legacy while fostering inclusivity in our understanding of gender and spirituality today.